Imagine finding out that the ultimate definitive manual on, like, global dominance and ruthless strategy
Right.
was actually financed by a guy having to awkwardly ask his mom and dad for a loan to cover his rent.
It's kind of hard to picture, honestly.
It really is. I mean, today we are unpacking the massive paradox of Robert Greene. Welcome to the deep dive. We're taking you on this journey into a cultural phenomenon that has just completely captured the internet's collective attention.
Yeah, and it's far more than just a fleeting trend.
Oh, totally. We're looking at a sprawling 2-hour viral interview from the Diary of a CEO. It features Greene, the best-selling American author, and the scale of this conversation is just staggering.
It really is massive.
We're talking over 18.8 million views,
Wow.
hundreds of thousands of likes, and this massive ecosystem of spin-off clips that have, permeated just about every social media feed on the planet.
It really is a cultural footprint. I mean, to ground us in who we're actually talking about here, Robert Greene was born in 1959, and he's authored 7 immensely successful books.
Mhm.
Titles like Power, which most people know as The 48 Laws of Power.
Oh, yeah, the classic.
Exactly. And The Daily Laws. These have become indispensable texts in, well, everywhere, from corporate boardrooms to the hip-hop industry.
Which is such a wild range of demographics.
It really is. But what we're going to trace today is the specific architectural arc of this interview. When you look at the progression of their conversation, it acts as this remarkably transparent roadmap of Greene's entire life's work.
Yeah.
His philosophy, and ultimately his own deeply personal confrontation with mortality.
And that roadmap, I mean, that is the hook for me. The juxtaposition in this conversation is just wild.
Oh, completely.
You start off in the deep end of what feels like a masterclass in dark psychology,
Yeah.
manipulation, the mechanics of seduction, learning how to actually weaponize your enemies.
Which is intense.
It is. It's an intense exploration of asserting total, uncompromising dominance over your environment.
Yeah, the pivot.
Right after discussing the absolute peak of human capability, the art of mastery, the entire interview just pivots. It drops abruptly into this profoundly raw, vulnerable discussion about suffering a life-altering stroke,
Yeah.
about enduring this debilitating physical struggle and trying to decipher what happiness actually means.
It's a massive shift.
It's a sheer drop from the pursuit of absolute power to the reality of absolute human frailty. Okay, let's unpack this.
We have to start where the conversation starts, which is the undeniable, almost gravitational pull of control.
Right.
Because 18 million people don't just click on a video about the rules of power by accident.
No, definitely not.
That viewership tells us something fundamental about human nature,
Yeah.
and our collective anxieties.
Oh, for sure.
We're living in a chaotic, unpredictable world, and there is a deep primal hunger for a blueprint. A set of rules that promises to turn the unpredictable variables of life into, well, a manageable, winnable game.
And you see that blueprint laid out right away. Like,
Mm.
the interview jumps from discussing his international success straight into the core question of what is power.
Yeah.
And then immediately hits us with an incredibly provocative concept, which is learn how to use your enemies.
Which is quite the statement.
Right. When I hear that, I instantly think of a modern-day spy manual or like a chess game where you aren't just calculating the board, you are psychologically dissecting the person sitting across from you.
Exactly.
But hold on, I have to ask, doesn't teaching millions of people to actively use their enemies just make the world a vastly more toxic Machiavellian place?
It's a fair question.
Like, aren't we just encouraging people to view everyone around them as a utility?
Well, what's fascinating here is how Greene reframes the very concept of opposition. I mean, in modern polite society, we are heavily conditioned to avoid enemies.
Right. Keep the peace.
Exactly. We're taught to mediate conflict, to seek harmony, to build bridges. But Greene's framework suggests that this pursuit of endless harmony is actually a vulnerability.
Wait, really? A vulnerability?
Yeah, because opposition, in his view, is a utility. Structurally speaking, an enemy provides a boundary. They provide resistance. And just like, building muscle in a gym, psychological and strategic resistance is absolutely required for any kind of growth.
Okay, so instead of looking at a rival at work and thinking, how do I avoid this person?
Mm-hmm.
Or how do I make peace with them?
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to look at them as a whetstone to sharpen your own blade.
Precisely, because an enemy is predictable.
Oh, that's interesting.
Think about it. A friend, driven by envy or a desire to avoid hurting your feelings, might flatter you or conceal their true motives.
Right. You never really know where you stand.
Exactly. But an enemy's motives are crystal clear. They want to defeat you. You can rely on that. You can plan around that.
Wow.
Greene actually explores the idea that bringing a former enemy into your fold can yield more loyalty than hiring a friend, simply because the former enemy has something to prove.
That is, yeah, I guess they would be operating on a deficit of trust.
Right. And they'll work twice as hard to establish their value. But this requires a completely different operational mindset, which leads directly into the next major concept of the interview, which is concealing your intentions and being a strategist.
Let's talk about concealing intentions, because that just flies in the face of everything we are currently taught.
Oh, completely.
We live in an era of radical transparency. You're supposed to, like, build in public, share your authentic journey, post your daily routines, and broadcast your every emotional state.
Yeah, it's constant.
The internet literally runs on the currency of oversharing.
And that is exactly why concealing your intentions has become such a radical, almost subversive act of personal agency. Greene treats information as a highly guarded, finite resource. When you broadcast your next move, whether that's a business pivot, a personal project, or even a romantic interest, you immediately invite interference.
You open the door.
Exactly. You give other people the opportunity to judge it, to sabotage it, or to steal it. You're basically handing over the steering wheel.
It's like showing your poker hand before the betting even starts.
Yes.
If everyone knows exactly what you want,
Yeah.
they know exactly how to manipulate you to get what they want.
Or how to block you. By withholding your intentions, you cultivate an aura of unpredictability.
Right.
And unpredictability generates anticipation, and anticipation is a core component of power. When people don't know what you're going to do next, they are forced to wait on your actions.
They're reacting to you.
Yes, they are put in a reactionary position while you maintain the proactive position. It is a profound shift in power dynamics, simply achieved by closing your mouth.
I want you, the listener, to really stop and think about that dynamic in your own life for a second.
It's super relevant.
It is. Where are you currently oversharing? Where are you acting without a strategy? Just reacting to whatever email or social dynamic is put in front of you, putting all your cards face up on the table.
Yeah.
We so often think of power as this abstract, distant thing, like something reserved for billionaires in boardrooms or politicians in debates.
Right.
But this completely grounds it in your everyday reality. If you are constantly leaking your intentions to your coworkers, your friends, or your competitors, you're essentially forfeiting your own agency.
It bridges the gap between cold, calculated grand strategy and the messy, day-to-day reality of human interaction.
Absolutely.
And Greene doesn't let the conversation linger solely in the realm of boardrooms and adversarial tactics. He seamlessly transitions from the mechanics of power into a much more intimate, treacherous space.
The psychology of human desire.
Exactly. Interpersonal relationships.
Right, the transition from dominance to seduction. This is where the tone really shifts. We move away from the stark mechanics of outmaneuvering rivals and step into the incredibly complex world of social dynamics.
Yeah, and the progression here is fascinating.
We hit the chapter, is it being a narcissist good or bad? Followed by the power of seduction. And then we look at the flip side, what makes you anti-seductive?
That first question, is it being a narcissist good or bad? That is a brilliant provocation.
Oh, for sure.
Think about the current cultural zeitgeist. If you spend any time online today, narcissist is the ultimate diagnostic insult.
Right, it's thrown around constantly.
It's universally treated as a purely toxic, irredeemable trait. But by framing it as a genuine inquiry into its utility, Greene challenges that prevailing internet trend. He forces us to look at the functional, dual-sided nature of narcissism.
It implies a spectrum. Because on one extreme, yes, you have the deeply destructive pathological ego that manipulates and tears down everyone in its orbit.
Yes.
That is the toxic narcissism we all know to avoid. But on the other end of that spectrum, there has to be a baseline level of intense self-interest.
Exactly.
You actually need a robust self-belief to survive, to assert your boundaries, and to launch your ideas into the world. You cannot be a master strategist if you fundamentally don't believe your own ideas have intrinsic value.
Right. Without a degree of self-focus, ambition just has no engine. Greene refers to this concept of healthy narcissism.
Healthy narcissism.
Yeah. It's the ability to possess a strong, cohesive sense of self that isn't entirely dependent on external validation, but is also capable of turning its focus outward.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that outward focus is what drives the machinery of seduction. In Greene's framework, it's vital to understand that seduction is not confined to romance or the bedroom.
It's applied psychology.
It is the ultimate psychological dynamic. Seduction is the ability to bypass someone's critical defensive mechanisms by appealing directly to their imagination and their desires.
So it's about disarming them.
Yes. If you argue with someone, you engage their logic and their defensive walls immediately go up.
Oh, absolutely. They dig in.
But if you seduce them, if you make them feel seen, if you reflect their ideals back to them, if you create a sense of mystery or allure, their defenses drop voluntarily.
And the conversation gets incredibly granular and practical about how this actually works. We get into chapters about dating advice and, crucially, how your body language betrays you.
Oh, this is a great part.
Let's dive into body language,
Yeah.
because I always think of this like a leaky faucet in a poorly plumbed house.
Okay, I like that analogy.
You can try with all your cognitive might to control the main water valve, which, in this analogy, is the script of words coming out of your mouth.
Right.
You can plan exactly what you want to say, make it sound incredibly confident, strategic, and polished. But if the internal plumbing is faulty, the truth is going to drip out anyway.
It always does.
Your shoulders tense up, your breathing gets shallow, your eyes dart away for a split second, your posture slightly caves. The truth drips out. So how does this concept of being anti-seductive tie into those subconscious body language betrayals?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, seduction is essentially about cultivating a gravitational pull.
Okay.
You're attempting to draw people toward you, a partner, an investor, an audience. Anti-seductive traits are the repulsive forces. They're the behaviors that violently push people away, almost entirely on a subconscious level. When your body language betrays you, the water leaking out of that faucet usually consists of those anti-seductive qualities.
Like what, specifically?
Things like insecurity, desperation, an overwhelming need for validation, or a suppressed hostility.
So you could be saying all the right, charming things, running the perfect script, but your nervous system is practically shouting across the room, I am desperate for you to like me.
Exactly. Or, I am deeply threatened by your presence right now.
And people pick up on that.
Oh, human beings are evolutionary experts at detecting that dissonance. We might not possess the vocabulary to articulate exactly why someone makes us uncomfortable, but our amygdala registers the mismatch.
Between their confident words and their anxious microexpressions.
Right. We intuitively feel that something is fundamentally off. Therefore, the true strategy of power and seduction isn't just about memorizing tactics. It demands a profound, almost exhaustive alignment between your internal emotional state and your external presentation. It requires you to resolve your internal insecurities so they stop leaking out.
Which naturally brings us to the absolute pinnacle of the first half in this interview. The chapter literally titled, Learn the Art of Mastery.
The summit.
This is the summit.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about the apex of human capability. You have learned how to use your enemies for growth. You know how to conceal your intentions and maintain the proactive advantage.
You've got it all figured out.
You understand the spectrum of narcissism, the mechanics of seduction, and you've ruthlessly aligned your internal state to eliminate anti-seductive body language. You are at the top of the mountain, an unstoppable force of strategy and influence. And then the conversation hits a brick wall.
It is one of the most profound structural pivots you will ever see in a biographical interview.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Look at the progression. We reach Learn the Art of Mastery, a discussion on achieving the highest levels of human control. I know there's a brief ad break for sponsors, Airbnb, Huel, Blue Jeans.
Right, the usual.
And the very next chapter is titled, A Stroke Changed My Life.
The philosophical weight of that sequence is just staggering. For over an hour, we've been rigorously dissecting how to gain absolute, uncompromising control over external outcomes. We are listening to a man who has dedicated his entire adult life to decoding the treacherous waters of human nature.
Yeah.
Teaching millions how to become the ultimate, irreversible masters of their domain. And suddenly, without warning, he faces a massive stroke.
It is.
A stroke is the ultimate, undeniable loss of physical agency.
It doesn't care how many laws of power you've memorized.
Exactly.
It doesn't care if you know how to perfectly conceal your intentions or seduce an adversary. Your biology simply rebels, the lights flicker, and the machine shuts down.
It forces a violent collision between the mind of a supreme master strategist and the inescapable, terrifying frailty of the human vessel.
Yeah.
Think about what that does to a person's worldview.
Yeah.
When the very instrument you rely on to enact your will upon the world world, your brain, your nervous system, your body betrays you, the entire foundational premise of power has to be reevaluated.
I mean, if you cannot command your own left arm to move, what does it mean to command a boardroom?
Right. It shatters the illusion.
I want to pause here. I want you, the listener, to really reflect on that collision. We spend so much of our daily lives chasing the illusion of total control.
So much time.
We read the productivity books, we listen to deep dives like this one, we obsess over mastering our finances, optimizing our career trajectories, curating our social dynamics. And all of that is valid and necessary.
Of course.
But there is a hard, unavoidable line where strategy ends and fate begins. You
Yeah.
can master every social dynamic in a crowded room, but you cannot out-strategize biology.
You really can't.
You cannot manipulate mortality. How does a strategist reconcile those two opposing truths?
Well, that reconciliation becomes the beating heart of the interview's final act. The sudden realization of profound frailty doesn't destroy Greene's concept of mastery. Rather, it tempers it.
It forces an evolution.
Exactly. The pursuit of external dominance leads directly into a profound exploration of perseverance, raw vulnerability, and the search for ultimate fulfillment.
Yeah.
And this is where, looking at the broader context of this interview, the stories surrounding it adds a crucial humanizing layer.
Yes, the origin story. There are all these spin-off clips and surrounding metadata titles like My Struggles and How to Overcome Them.
I love that part.
And the raw facts presented in this part of his life strip away all the intimidation and mystique of the best-selling Machiavellian author persona.
They really do.
Before the 18 million views, before the international fame and the hip-hop endorsements, Robert Greene was just a guy who, by his own admission, had worked dozens of odd jobs.
Yeah, he was just struggling to get by.
He always desperately wanted to be a writer and found himself in a position where he actually had to borrow money from his parents to survive while writing the 48 Laws of Power.
It is a stunning paradox when you place it next to the actual subject matter of his books.
It is the ultimate irony. The definitive, ruthless guide to historical dominance, the book read by billionaires and presidents, was funded by a guy having to ask his mom and dad for a loan to keep the lights on and chase a dream.
Right.
So, does knowing that deeply human, almost humbling origin story make his work on power seem less authoritative? Or does it somehow make the strategies more universally applicable?
I would argue it makes the work infinitely more valuable.
Really? How so?
Because it proves that these strategies didn't incubate in an ivory tower. They weren't handed down by someone born with a silver spoon who never had to fight for agency.
That's a point.
They were forged in the fires of absolute necessity and desperation. When you look at his discussion on struggles and overcoming them, it completely recontextualizes the pursuit of power.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Power isn't just about ruling a kingdom or crushing a corporate rival. Sometimes power is simply the gritty, unglamorous ability to figure out how to survive long enough to write the book you always knew you had in you, even when you were broke and running out of time.
Power as survival. Yes.
Power as the sheer, unrelenting grit required to weather the storm. Which perfectly sets up the penultimate chapter of this entire sprawling journey. What have you learned about happiness?
This raises an important question, perhaps the most critical question of this entire analysis.
Let's hear it.
If the first half of this interview is relentlessly focused on acquiring power, manipulating dynamics, and conquering enemies,
Right.
and the final half is focused on surviving a devastating stroke, enduring physical struggle, and defining happiness, are power and happiness fundamentally correlated in this worldview, or are they completely at odds with one another?
It is the ultimate tension. Can you be a ruthless, calculating strategist who views social dynamics as a chessboard and still be genuinely, deeply happy?
Well, what is deeply telling is the chronological placement of these concepts in his life and in this interview.
Okay.
The discussion of happiness does not appear during the recounting of his massive international success. It doesn't manifest during the breakdown of how to master seduction or how to outmaneuver adversary.
It comes later. The deep dive into happiness only emerges after the discussion of the stroke, after the catastrophic loss of control, and after the acknowledgement of profound personal vulnerability.
Wow.
This suggests a massive evolution in Greene's own perspective. True contentment in this context is not the prize waiting at the end of conquering the world.
It's something else entirely.
It appears to be born entirely from the resilience required to survive hardship, the grace of adapting to the loss of power, and the quiet search for meaning in the aftermath of trauma.
It is almost as if power is the heavy armor you have to forge and wear to successfully navigate the brutality of the world.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
But happiness is what you find when you're finally forced, by biology or circumstance, to take that armor off. So what does this all mean? We have traced an incredible sweeping path through Robert Greene's mind today.
We really have.
We started in the deep Machiavellian waters of calculating power tactics, exploring the necessity of hiding our true intentions, and unpacking the dark gravitational pull of seduction and body language.
The blueprint of control.
Exactly. We looked at the absolute mechanics of total unyielding mastery.
Yeah.
And then we watched that narrative slam into the brick wall of human frailty with a life-altering stroke,
Could pivot.
transitioning into a deeply raw, vulnerable reflection on physical struggle, the reliance on family, and the quiet, hard-won pursuit of actual sustainable happiness. It is a roadmap of an incredibly complex, fully realized life.
It is a remarkable synthesis of the full spectrum of the human experience, the drive to conquer and the inevitability of surrender. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to ponder, something that builds directly on the unique tension we explored today.
Let's hear it.
If you were forced to sit down right now and write out a chapter list of your own life exactly as it stands in this current moment, would those titles focus more on the aggressive pursuit of trying to control your environment, defeat your obstacles, and conceal your intentions? Or would they look more like the second half of this journey, focused on navigating your unavoidable struggles, facing your profound vulnerabilities, and defining what you've actually learned about true happiness?
That's a deep question.
When you look at those two distinctly different halves of the human experience, where does true mastery actually lie?
That is a question worth carrying with you. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep examining the information around you, look past the surface of the strategies you see online, and never stop questioning the roadmap. We will catch you on the next one.